Here we are, this is it, the new TIME Scylon, and I'm here with its creator. This is Tony Karklins from TIME CEO. This is the world's first look at the TIME.
This is the debut right here.
Apart from a few leaks. As opposed to trying to dodge dog poo and potholes. Okay, as you can probably tell by now, we had the opportunity of visiting TIME in Slovakia for their factory visit. We've already put out one video with that, the whole podcast with Tony. Whilst we were there, we had the opportunity of seeing the Scylon for the first time and the opportunity of being talked through all its features by its CEO. But this is a map deck video. You are here for my criticism and my review, as well as his technical input. So we're going to give you those two things as we go through the video. Sadly, this is only a first look video. We have seen it, but I just don't have one here. They're still missing some components. So we're putting this video to have it ready for launch day. Later on, we also have a big full factory tour video, which is an epic piece of content. It's going to take us weeks to get around to editing that. We've got almost 2 terabytes worth of footage on there and over 16 hours of excellent footage. So we really want to make a good job of that video. And then later on, we have a video planned as a dream build of the Scylon and some other juicy components, but that's probably going to come in May. So this video is very much our first look at the Scylon and my criticisms alongside Tony's input. Okay, back to it.
We're about 2 years in on this project and we've really developed this thing from the inside out. So we're really proud to debut it with you here today.
Fantastic. It looks beautiful.
Thank you.
An absolute work of art.
We're really happy with the way it turned out.
There's some things on here that look very familiar, some things on here that look new. Can you talk us through what is definitely new that we've never seen before?
Yeah.
What's a real highlight?
I think first of all, the best place for us to start is what Scylon is. Scylon is the top product that TIME has ever produced. We first started making it about 9 years ago in the first generation. And Scylon is our most aerodynamic product. It's our lightest weight product. It's our stiffest product. But it also has that classic TIME durability and ride quality. And so we're really proud that we were able to focus on every one of those attributes.
Tony is absolutely right here. There are no headline grabbing features here that you're going to see smothered over GCN show and bike radar. This is very much a balance between all the aspects you'd expect to see in a race bike. So it is not the lightest out there, but it's in the ballpark. It is not the most aerodynamic out there, but it looks like it is in the ballpark. It is probably going to be the stiffest, and we'll come on to that in a second about the classic ride quality that he's talking about. It is also not the most expensive or the cheapest either. I think the price is quite reasonable. Again, we'll come to that in a second. In all, the headline grabbing feature is it's probably a very balanced product.
It is a real balancing act because when you develop bikes like this, you've got some choices to make. You can make things that are really pushing the edge of aerodynamics. And if you do that, oftentimes you add a lot of weight and you sort of hit to an 1100 gram weight where it gets very difficult for people to want to acquire a bike of that weight. Or you lose a lot of stiffness and durabilities. So developing a project like this, for us, we took a balanced approach. I mean, we are TIME, we are a conservative, traditional brand. We're not going to push the edges of aerodynamics, and we enjoy watching others do that. But when we do it ourselves, we take a really balanced approach.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. How much does this frame weigh? Well, in a size medium, unpainted, which was the only thing that we could weigh at the time, it was 900 grams. Now, the nude paint finish that they do is going to be the lightest. That's after all just a couple of layers of clear coat. The white is probably going to be the heaviest paint finish because there's an awful lot of pigment in white paint, and also they put a pearlescent effect on there as well. So we expect that frame weight to come out around the 950 grams. Now, to put that into perspective, a Scott Addict at the moment is coming in at 985, Pinarello Dogma F 865, the SL8 in a white paint is 730, probably one of the lightest race bikes on the Pro Peloton right now. We have things like the Giant Propel at 845, the Super 6 at 810, the Trek Madone 796. The Look 795, also about the same weight as this, about 950. So it is in the ballpark, but it's certainly not market leading, which really doesn't lead, its attributes have to be around its stiffness and ride quality as its standout feature.
For me, it's like in the car business. It's like the next generation of a Porsche. It's still a Porsche.
So you see this as a race bike, but a race bike for almost any course?
Yeah, I mean, this bike is aerodynamic. This bike is super stiff. Okay. This bike is lightweight. And it's really fast, but it's super durable and it rides like a TIME. And that's
the important thing.
That's the thing. Our bikes ride and feel differently because of the manufacturing process that we use, which is completely unique to TIME bicycles.
So what are the most obvious things when you see the Scylon compared to the Alpe d'Huez is the the aero-ness, I guess, of the shape. So we have a deeper fork.
We have a deeper fork.
Yep.
We have a new head tube design. So, you know, we had to go to integration on this level of Scylon. So this is the first time Scylon's been integrated. So we started this project by having to increase the surface area
Of the head tube, isn't it?
Yeah, so we had to increase front end surface area by 6-7% just to get cable integration into it. But our goal was to lightweight it. So we started off, you know, under pressure because we're having to increase surface area.
Okay, what Tony is talking here, on the older style aero bikes with rim brakes and external cabling, we obviously managed to have a sculptured head tube. Obviously the cables were in the way and it was nowhere near as integrated, so you can argue those aerodynamics out. What they're having to do is to make sure we've got room for cables is to widen the head tube. Now, other brands have approached it slightly different and still managed to have that sculptured look of their head tube, which reduces the frontal area. But Time made the compromise by having a standard 51.8mm bearing with a 56mm top cap, whereas other brands have gone much skinnier and have compromised the bearing durability there, which is definitely a process of lightweighting the bike, but then gives you much more headaches about trying to find a compatible handlebar. And also you have very skinny bearings, which often need replacing, and the amount of work needed to replace those bearings is very labor intensive as well. So have Time done the right thing here? I think so, from a durability, compatibility point of view, and they've sacrificed some aerodynamics, whether that's important to you.
So in the lightweighting process, we were able to cut more than 100 grams out of every single frame size.
That's good.
We improved the aerodynamics by 12%. We retained the bottom bracket stiffness, which is what is the famous piece of the original Scylon.
That was the Scylon's, like...
Yeah, that was
the
it.
Scylon's thing, wasn't it?
This connection right here is incredibly stiff, and that's the heart of Scylon.
It was such a responsive ride, wasn't it? You put your foot down, even just a little bit, and it,
you know,
just
the people that have already reached out and said, I hope it rides like the original Scylon. I hope it's that stiff. I hope it's that fast.
Okay.
We can guarantee that it is.
Okay, if you really are looking for a headline feature about the TIME Scylon, frame stiffness is probably it. Now, normally frame stiffness is associated with a very harsh ride characteristic. Time normally get around that by, one, being a resin transfer molded process, which we will show you in that full factory tour, but also they add other materials in there. They obviously mix modulus of carbons like most frame manufacturers do, but they also mix in bio-based Dyneema, Kevlar, and all that sort of thing to really make sure the ride is as smooth as possible. It's more about anti-vibration more than it is about frame compliance. Personally, having a really stiff frame is a really confidence-inspiring ride. It just handles really predictably, and that gives you a really reassuring ride feel, especially when you're hammering downhill or on the flats, carrying a lot of speed. That's good to know. That's good to know.
And so we increased surface area on the front end,
yeah,
increased aerodynamics by 12%, but we also increased front end stiffness by 9%. We have a little more surface area to work with, so we were able to increase that front end stiffness.
So you've got they've got the thicker fork for that. Also, these dropouts look new.
Yeah, and also they're still forged carbon.
Yep.
So incredibly strong drops.
But that's a new looking shape to us.
Yep.
And I have to say, I do like this slight design signature, which is still classic, going back to your 911 analogy, where you can just see this lovely line just trace itself onto the top tube.
It's
just
a nice,
subtle, but it's
subtle
nice
touch in there. But that's also part of the front end stiffness of the bike. That really helped that a lot.
So the down tube actually looks like it's got some sort of aerodynamic properties.
Yeah, that was one of the main tubes. We focused mostly in the aerodynamics of the fork, the head tube, and the down tube. And each of those, as we would go through the design process, okay, goal was to lightweight, so we got to be careful with the shaping, but to keep the stiffness and get to the most aerodynamic balance that we can. And so you see some fairly classic aerodynamic shapes. We're not really pushing the edge with this one, but we also, our goal was to cut weight out and retain that stiffness.
And it's been tested. We've seen some of the data on your PDFs that you've sent around as well. It looks like it's gone through some CFD testing.
Yeah, we use two different test labs. We use one in Colorado and we use one here in Slovakia. And we have all the stiffness data compared to our previous generation of Scylon and all the other bikes that we've made.
Just come back to that again. Sorry, you've used aero testing in here in Slovakia.
Oh, no. Final product testing.
Final product testing.
Stiffness, durability test, all those tests.
And that's here, like in Slovakia.
That facility is here in Slovakia. One of the largest ones in Europe is based here in Slovakia.
That's incredibly handy.
Yeah. Now our carbon fiber development work, we're mostly using a group out of Sweden.
Okay.
Our CFD work also happens out of Sweden.
Okay.
Because those two things kind of go hand in hand. The designers can do all kinds of beautiful designs. They can maximize aerodynamics in these programs, but we lose stiffness or we add weight.
Yeah.
So it's a constant back and forth and balance.
So really what I'm getting from this whole experience, we've done a factory tour and we'll share it with you guys soon, is nothing has really traveled very far, even outside Europe.
No.
To get to this point.
Our entire supply chain is within 250 kilometers of this factory right here.
That's incredible. Okay, I think this is an important point to raise, because if you are looking for a more balanced feature set from your bike, that's got to include sustainability and ethics. What will really blow you away when you start seeing the factory tour and the previous podcast that we did is just how close all of the key elements are to the TIME factory. They really have based themselves amongst the manufacturing hub of Europe. And Tony's collaborative approach by finding lots of technical partners to work with is really, really quite inspiring. So in terms of sustainability, the wax relief molds, the amount of wastage that just goes out and the thrown away bits of carbon, but also how much things like just the tools required to make it actually travel is tiny in comparison to a lot of other brands. Very impressive, actually.
I mean, and we're proud that on this one, I mean, even our seat clamp is made locally now. So we make our own dropouts here.
Yeah.
All of our carbon fiber supply chain comes mostly out of Germany and some out of the Czech Republic and a little bit out of France.
That's brilliant. Coming back to the frame then, we've got an aero seat post.
Yes.
This is going to be a love-hate thing. People do love their 27.2 seat post for the convenience of the bike fit in.
We certainly thought about it,
yeah.
But we decided to retain that. We're happy with it. The seat post we also manufacture here. The frame set comes with its own seat post. The new seat post head is quite an advancement over the previous one. We used to make 4 different seat posts with different 4-aft settings.
Yeah.
And now we have one seat post that goes between positive 10 and negative 20 setback.
Yeah.
So kind of a fitter's dream right there.
Okay, the seat post is a really important point to note, and you'll notice that in the video there is no seat post attached, because that is the thing that's delaying production at the moment. They've made the seat post shaft, but they're still waiting for their partners doing the CNC machining of the actual head to deliver. And that's the really interesting design development here, because what they've done is design a seat post that will go back 20 millimeters, but also forwards 10 millimeters from the neutral position. So when you're looking at the geometry charts and you see that 73-degree angle on the seat post, remember that you can take the effective seat angle back probably 1.5 degrees, maybe even 2 degrees, but forward 1 degree from that as well. So if you're starting to replicate a more forward aerodynamic ride, then you can do that. What I haven't done so far and what I'm eager to do is make sure we get a saddle rail on there and see how far forward we can actually get, and see whether we can replicate this more modern riding position we're seeing, where riders almost rest their arms on the levers instead. The other thing to note here is that those saddle rails will also fit the 7mm round saddle rails and the 7x9 oval ones that you find on carbon. There's no need to change anything else. It's just compatible with both of them out of the box. That's got to be a thumbs up too.
But we're happy with the shaping of this. It's quite lightweight, very stiff, and we certainly toyed with the 27.2 thing, because the 27.2 seat post is nice, but this one needed the Aero seat post.
Yeah, absolutely. So sadly we haven't got one here yet, but it will be painted as well, won't it?
No, we don't paint the seat posts.
No? Okay.
We don't, because overall the durability of the seat post and adjustments and insertions, we don't.
But it's a TIME seat post.
It's a TIME seat post. It's made of the exact same materials as the frame.
Resin transfer molded seat post.
Yeah, exactly the same process, exactly the same materials.
And it's got your own proprietary head on there as well. That gives you loads of adjustment. Perfect, love that. So the next big thing is this area here.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is kind of the heart of the stiffness of the TIME Scylon.
So normally we're used to seeing 4 stays all coming into the bottom bracket, and in the manufacturing process we've just seen this is all one piece.
Yes, it's a one-piece chainstay system. We call it the power stay. It uses a lot of our fork technology in it. In fact, this one component here is made of 100% ultra-high modulus carbon we cut 20% of the weight out of this one piece and retain the stiffness. But the key to it is this intersection right here with the bottom bracket shell and the internal ribs that we build inside of the chainstay system, just super stiff. Yep. Super responsive.
Yep. So what Tony is describing here is a slightly different construction technique over a lot of other models. So the 2 chainstays come together into one sort of box section, which is then reinforced with ribs and then glued in together, which we'll show you the footage of. What this means is that whole area becomes very stiff and very rigid with very little room for movement. But the downside is it also pushes out the length of the chainstays. So the geometry charts are showing a 410mm chainstay length, which is probably a little bit on the long side. It would be better if that's more like a 405. Now, the effect of that, it probably makes it a little bit more stable at high speeds, but a little bit less agile in cornering. But we'll talk about that more when we come to the front center geometry too. And we've got some footage of how all this whole section is just bonded in and then joins on.
We showed you some of the tricks of how we do that in the wax and how we do it in the layup. But that technology that we use here is what came from our fork design that gives our forks such incredible strength and stiffness.
I mean, this looks beautiful. This is really clean. And then the dropouts, are these the same as the ADH?
Yeah, we're using the same ADH dropout system on this right now. We're watching UDH closely in the market. We see maybe on the horizon, but the UDH dropouts are a fair bit bigger, add a little more weight to the structure.
Yeah.
And so we'll go there when the market tells us to go there.
Sure. I just want to point out how literally this is fresh out of paint, isn't it? Because we've still got actually the masking
I believe
plates.
this is one you were painting earlier today.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh, where's that blemish sign made? I don't know. But we don't want to weigh it because we've still got the metal inserts and the masking on here. It really has not gone through quality control yet. Yeah. So the eagle-eyed viewers of you like pointing things out, this is not even touch quality control.
This has
come straight out of paint. It is that hot.
Right,
okay, the next elephant in the room. Handlebar, Tony. So you're famous for using the 51.8 headset in there. So you've got Data, FSA, Chris King, you can use NV.
Enduro's now making a headset
Enduro's now making a headset for it, absolutely. Yep. It's probably the most compatible system, but you've got the option, I think, of buying the Scylon with or without.
Yeah, we're going to be introducing it 3 ways. Frame set that comes with the seat post. We'll introduce it as a fuselage that'll have either an aftermarket one-piece cockpit or a painted to match upgrade on the one-piece cockpit.
Okay, so you can just get a bare carbon.
Yeah, because to paint match these, it's a pretty reasonable upgrade there, but it certainly does set the look apart.
Okay, so you've got 3 options: one without a handlebar, one with a black one that will match the seat post, and then one that is going to be completely color matched.
And our launch partner for that is Vision, and we're using their 5D Evo system. And you'll see us expand our cockpit offers and customization offers throughout the year.
Excellent, looking forward to that. And it looks like you've even been custom painted the top cap as well.
We don't do for this one particular here, this is a special launch project that we're doing with our friends at Polymer Workshop in Copenhagen.
Okay.
And so we did that for them there, but that's a really tricky piece to paint because a lot of those are 3D printed, and 3D printed surfaces don't hold a paint quality like our frames do. Sure. So that's a work in process right there, but it looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few little things on here that I have to say I'm really glad that you went with. So one is the little red TIME logo.
Yeah, it's a little wink to our
It is
so
heritage. Subtle, and it's like there's a little red TIME logo back here as well, which I think is lovely. Just a little finishing touch there. I mean, it looks absolutely stunning. I can't wait to get a group set on it and some wheels and take it for a ride. Okay, here's the thing with TIME right now in the UK. They are really only available as a frame only. There are plans to try and make fully built bikes available in the UK. But in all fairness, most of you that are interested in it really want that custom build experience. And that really does open up a lot of options with the decisions that they've made right the way through those headset sizes, the bottom bracket compatibility and all sorts. It probably is one of the most easily compatible bikes in that race market at the moment. The BB386 Evo means you can put whatever crankset you want in there and you'll get a good bottom bracket experience. Same with the handlebars. Nearly every integrated cockpit has got some way of matching to a 51.8/52mm bearing and a 56mm top cap. There are a couple of exceptions, and those you can normally find someone's 3D printing something. So the customization options are absolutely insane. And when you think about the price, the frame set is actually on sale for £4,099. Yes, expensive, but all bikes in this high performance race category are expensive. To give a couple of examples, an S-Works SL8 comes in at £4,500 and is about 200 grams lighter. But that £900 saving, I think you could argue you could put towards a nicer set of wheels, possibly something like the Scope AirTex, easily get those 200 grams back. But in rotational weight, yes, of course, you could keep spending on both those two things to get something exceptionally light. But this is the whole point of customization. You get to choose the characteristics you want, whether you want a stiff frame and a light set of wheels or whether you want lightweight everything. All depends on how you ride, where you ride, and your personal preferences. And honestly, I think if you're going to provide just a frame only, TIME are doing the right thing by trying to make it as compatible as possible. There is no SRAM UDH. They're still using their own derailleur hanger here. And I think that is okay, especially when you look at things like the Colnago V1 RS, when they have this big, chunky derailleur hanger on a very svelte, slim bike. It doesn't seem to work properly. I don't think there's any real need to have a SRAM UDH on a dedicated race bike. I can't see a point where you're ever going to fit a full-on SRAM transmission onto a bike like this. Maybe I'm wrong, let me know. Now, if you're thinking that £4,099 is still expensive, well, a giant Propel SL is £3,799, and probably the cheapest bike in the Pro Peloton right now, the Van Rysel, is at 3,500. I think in terms of price, considering it's made in Europe and all the features you're getting with it, I've got to say it probably stacks up rather well, but keen to hear your comments, and now's the time to get them down below. We're outside this disgusting looking building because we are about to take this on and expand our business into it. When we were out in Slovakia talking to Tony about it, he thought, what a great idea to have a whole host of Time bikes available for you guys to come and try and demo. So you don't always have to take our word for that ride feel that we always bang on about. Now, if you haven't seen our crowdfunding video already, please take a look at the link below. We're trying to get a lot of very small donations together from our audience to make this thing happen and turn it into a real community facility full of loads of cool stuff. And those donations can range from a couple of quid using the super thanks below, or if you go and check out our Indiegogo campaign, we've got loads of really cool perks. One of those perks is doing the ultimate dream bike build. Yep, we actually have a perk where you can commission a bike from us, go and travel to see Phil Burt, get an absolute expert bike fitter from one of the best in the business, come to us, get your bike fully spec'd out, and then join us for a day in the workshop where we'll build it together and then go out for a ride in the Lake District afterwards. All the details for that are on the Indiegogo campaign, that link below. Please go check it out. There's loads of other cool perks as well from loads of our other suppliers, and let's see if we can make this dream happen.
I'll touch on a couple other things here real quick.
Go on.
Just on the general specs of it. It's 32C compatible. We felt that was probably the safest width to put out there. We'll be selling the bike mostly with 30C, but no, it is fully compatible to 32. And this has what we call our second generation layup. One of the ways we took the 100+ grams out of each frame size is we changed the fiber mix up. And we ended up with a 70-30% mix of T800 and M46J. M46J is the ultra high modulus stuff.
Yeah.
And so we kind of pushed that to the edge. Had we used more M40J, maybe we could have pulled 20 or 25 grams out of the frame, but we'd have lost that durability.
Sure.
So we don't want to lose that durability.
Just to pick up on that, so as you go to ultra high modulus, you also become more brittle.
Exactly.
So you have to build in
you
some
lose weight,
compliance.
super stiff fibers, but brittle.
Yeah.
And one thing that Time is known for is we make durable bikes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? When you invest in a Time, it's something that you've got some rock solid.
And that was a lot of the development work that we're doing, because we're constantly mixing the percentage of materials in our braided structures. And they're multi-layer braided structures, so we get to play with those percentages across all the different layers until we find that right balance of weight reduction, stiffness, and ride quality.
Yep. I mean, dropping 100 grams out of a frame is pretty significant.
Yeah, well, while we had to integrate it, the front end, and increase surface area. Then we also pushed some of our braiding technology.
Careful, you're going to trigger all the rim brake viewers.
Yeah. We also did some new braiding technology where we have our first braids that actually can go over the entire front end of the triangle.
Yep.
And that was a big improvement for us, because longer, more continuous fibers, more front end stiffness of that, and very complex to develop it, right? Because as we stretch these over these different shaped tubes, we have some directional morphing of the fibers, and all that has to be calculated into the exact ride characteristics and development of the bike. But big advancement for us on it. Simplifies our layup process, saves weight on it, and increases front end stiffness and durability.
Yep, and this comes back to the weaving process that we were talking about. And so, as I understand it, the weaves are very, very close together here, and they get wider and wider towards the center here, and then they get tighter and tighter up here. So the carbon is denser in this area.
Exactly.
And then weaves out. It's an incredible bit of technology that you can just do it all out on a loom.
Yeah, we really love showing our carbon weaves. So we have a little increased size of the Time logo there, so we can get
my partner Vicky, she jokes, this is what you're paying for.
That's right.
You've got to show the carbon because that's what you're paying for, right? Yeah. So it's really, really important. The red and the black aren't quite ready to show on camera just yet, but the red looks absolutely stunning.
Yeah, the candy red has been our top selling, we call it brilliant red, top selling color for the last 2 years.
Yep.
Very classic to the brand. We're also doing
red bikes are faster.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
And then we're also doing a nude finish, because we always do a nude finish. It's our lightest weight finish. It shows all the craftsmanship underneath of it. And then our fun color for launch is a brilliant purple. Yep. And you'll see some images of that come out over the next couple of weeks. It's a bit shocking.
We've only seen pictures. I haven't even seen a paint sample.
Yeah, it's still, pretty special. We're holding that back for the official launch day.
It looks fantastic. In fact, what's actually really blown my mind in the whole process actually is that it's the nude colours which need the most amount of surface prep and the most amount of care, more than the and it's no wonder that the prices are now the same, because the nude ones need actually more attention to finishing.
When you show all the craftsmanship, everything under there has to be perfect.
It does, yeah. There's no room for error. So,
but I mean, that's the proudest finish that we sell. You know, whenever we see one of those on the road, I mean, it just shows all the hard work and craftsmanship of time, and that's, you know, we're really proud of this.
Awesome. Right, let's get it back to the UK, built and ridden. Thank you so much, Tony. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. And sadly, we can't do that because there's not going to be any size larges available until about mid-April, which is when we go off to ride the Mallorca 312, which means that the rider view is going to be more like the start of May. So we're going to combine that together for like an ultimate dream build and ride review of a few other sexy components at the same time. So I'm sorry, no ride review right now, but it is coming. Before we end this video, I do think we need to just address some geometry points because Time have done some pretty unusual things, and at first glance at the geometry chart it may look a bit unusual. Essentially what they've done is they've added another size run in there. So the best way of thinking about it is that the medium, the large and the extra large stay about the same. So if you're traditionally a size medium, you'll near enough be a size medium. There's a little bit of crossover, so if you were right on the edge, it's worth paying some attention to it. Especially if you're a large, you will be a large, extra large, you will be an extra large. There is no double XL yet, sadly. Now, what has changed is they introduced a size in the smaller size run, but they haven't just added an extra small. Essentially, what's happened is that the old extra small, again with the ADH, has actually just become a little bit smaller and become the extra small, and then essentially a whole new size has been squeezed in, which they are now calling the size small. What they have done is they've had to make a decision on when to change the fork. So they've got two forks with two different fork offsets, 50mm and a 43. And the tricky decision is to work out at what point in the size run they change the fork. So what they have is the 50mm offset running all the way up to the size medium, which means that the medium size gets a slightly longer than it should have wheelbase, and that comes from the extra long front center. The large and the extra large then go back to the smaller fork offset, and therefore the wheelbase has come back down to a much more recognizable, about 1 meter long. In all honesty, they're pretty small differences, and you probably won't tell this much out on the road riding, but it is worth paying attention to. When it comes to stack and reach, what you're probably going to find is that the reach numbers are very similar to other things on the market. So I've just got up here Geometry Geeks, and I'm looking at the reach across the Scylon, the Specialized S8, the Giant Propel, Cannondale Super 6, the Look 795 blade, and they're all within about 5mm of each other. When it comes to the stack, the Scylon is coming up between 1 centimetre and 2 centimetres taller than most other things on the market. So compared to a Specialized, we're just slightly more than 2 centimetres at 23mm. When it comes to things like the Giant Propel, the difference is much smaller, more like just 5mm. So again, we're in the ballpark, but not necessarily pushing the boundaries. Now, my argument here would be, when you look at our video that we did with the SL8 build, that was for a 24-year-old pro racer, and he still needed to run a 1 centimetre spacer to get that to fit him. So the argument here is, if you fit an awful lot of spacers to raise the stack, then essentially you're losing some stiffness, because where your handlebars are compared to the fulcrum of that bearing is further apart. So is it better to have the extra frame material to increase the headset height and therefore give you a more stable and stiff front end? Or do you want a really low frame weight but then have to add loads of spacers to build up the stack? Of course, some of you out there might be super mobile and want a super low stack, but I think we're even seeing in pro racing they're tending to go for a slightly higher stack and a further forward position, and riding with a position where you're resting your hands on the tops as opposed to spending a lot of time on the drops these days. Again, this seems to be a trend that's emerging: higher stack, slightly longer reach, and riding in a slightly different position. Whether that trend continues, who knows? Okay, when it comes to things like head angles and trail numbers, this is where you'll find it's very much on par. The thing that probably sets it apart is that the front center is a little bit longer than other bikes in this category. So if you were to pull out a point of differential, that would probably be it. The outcome of that would be that it will feel more stable at high speeds. Think traveling downhill or across a bumpy road, traveling at speed, as opposed to trying to dodge dog poo and potholes. Or for the pro racers amongst us, weaving your way through a peloton. I think the main point to raise when it comes to geometry is to remember that because of that seat post will go back 20mm and forward 20mm, and because you've got so many compatibility options with an integrated handlebar, that really you need to play those two things into your equations, because that really will affect the final positioning. To sum up, I think you'll find a fit in here that will work for most people, unless you want something super low and super aero, or if you need a double XL. Everything else we should be able to cater for. So nice work, Time. Right, with all that said, over to you guys in the comments. What are your first thoughts on the TIME Scylon? Obviously, we're keen to see a first ride review, and I promise I'll get that to you as soon as possible. But hopefully this has given you enough information to spark an interest. Where does it sit in the lineup for you? Does it compete with other bikes out there, or is it way off the mark? Now's the time. Get those comments down below. I think we're all really keen to hear what you've got to say. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.